Uncensored brought to you by PointsBet. Check out PointsBet's great odds and offers. Download the app today and gamble responsibly. Well, today's guest on Uncensored, he's one of my favourite sportsmen of all time. He was a part of the incredible Hawthorn team of the 80s and 90s. He only won an amazing 5 premierships. That's not a bad start. And he played with a unique style. He had plenty of flair and plenty of front, but he was an extremely aggressive and competitive player. You don't see that combination too often. Nicknamed the Kid, he's also one of the most charismatic people I've ever met. Dermott Brereton, welcome to Uncensored.
We're actually going?
We are going.
How are you, mate? Great
Good,
to see you.
How you been, mate?
I'm very, very well. Getting older, 56 now, and the body hurts a bit, but it doesn't stop me still mucking around and doing stuff and keeping active.
Mate, just the Super Bowl wasn't too long ago, and you see Tom Brady at 43 or whatever win his 7th Super Bowl. You won 5 premierships, plus the 5 night premierships. So actually, you weren't happy with winning 5 days. You thought you were going with 5 nights. So 10 you're one of the most successful, if not the most successful player in AFL history. Can you relate to champions like Tom Brady, how hard it is to stay at the top? Because you blokes, teams would have been coming after you blokes for the best part of over a decade.
Yeah, well, first thing is incredibly jealous of Tom Brady still playing at 43, even though we say, oh yeah, our time's come. Yeah. We miss playing. Yeah. We miss playing. I do have an ex-teammate, Michael Tuck. He played in those 5 night grand finals, which were taken seriously in those days, and he actually won 7 premierships. Yeah. So he's played in a total of 39 games now. That's some sort of record. Back in those days, those night premierships, a lot of people say, oh, night premiership, what does that mean? In those days, the salary cap for us was about 1.2 million. And the clubs, even though they turn over 50 plus million now, those days they were turning over about 1.5 to 2 million. Yep. And if you made a profit of $50,000 as a club, it was a successful year. The night premiership was worth $180,000.
So you're
as if we're going to have a go at it. Yeah, it was the difference between a profitable and a non-profitable season. So we had a dig at it. Everyone had a go at it. So they were worth something.
Nature, isn't it? Once you're
absolutely
out there.
Yeah. Set them up. We'll have a go at it. Tom Brady, just thoroughly jealous of somebody who's allowed to go out there and do their craft, perform their craft in sports which suggest that 31 should be your ceiling. He's mid-40s.
Exactly.
How do you get it? And he's still going for a wage, I think, of $35 million a year.
And he's married to a supermodel.
Yes.
Well, you had that part covered most of your career anyway.
No, not marriage. Once I went there, yeah.
Mate, nicknamed the Kid. How did you get that nickname?
Yeah. So I was a reasonably good junior, and I got to Hawthorn at 14. They took us to a scholarship squad. By 15, I was playing in the under-19s. The next season, I was round 1. I was slated to be in the under-19s, and I got a call up the Saturday morning of the first game, which coincides, it's early, mid-April, mid-March. Yeah. And I said, oh yeah, unreal. I'm 16. So I hadn't really trained all that much with the senior team that week, or the senior 40 it would have been.
You were at school too? Were you at school then?
Oh yeah. At school, I was still year 11. And anyway, so I said to the bloke who said, at 7:30 in the morning, you've got to get to the ground, MCG, you're in the seconds, you've been dragged up to the seconds. I'm 16. And I said, who's pulled out? And they said, Gary Ablett, which is Gary Ablett Sr., who went on to become one of the all-time greats. I said, what's wrong with Gary? You didn't seem to be injured. When I said, no, he's gone duck shooting.
It was a practice game, wasn't it?
No, it was a proper first game in reserves. Yeah. But he thought duck shooting was more important. So I played in the reserves then, and I sat on the bench, being a call-up 16-year-old kid from the under-19s. And Desmar, former AFL player, 200 game player, 199 game player. He said to one bloke, Smithy, come on, son. This is at half time. We're sitting in the rooms, the sheds, and said, Smithy, get a kick, or we're going to put on that kid.
And the coach is saying this. You remember your name.
He couldn't remember my name. Hardly knew who I was.
Yeah.
And there's half the dozen of teammates went.
It's a bit like Freddie Fittler. Freddie Fittler got nicknamed Jack Gibson in the City team. He went Fred, and he went no, Brad. It's Brad. And both of you turned out to be.
And that stuck. Yeah,
the kid.
Yeah.
Mate, we'll go back to the start. Your parents from Ireland.
Yep.
Do you reckon that Irish? They're just known as tough bastards. Do you reckon that had a bit to do with your upbringing, having that Irish background in you, or the Irish blood in you?
Yeah, without doubt, culturally, you sort of take on that persona.
Yeah.
Yeah, funny enough, and I don't discuss it all that often, my mum was from a Protestant family. Yeah. My father was from a Roman Catholic family.
Yeah, that's a good double, isn't it? Ooh, especially over there.
Oh, in the 50s. Yeah. And my grandparents never met. Wouldn't really? Well, just they clearly did on their side, but they never crossed the floor to meet each other. Yeah. So that was how deep it was. So there was always angst there. Came out to Australia. My mum was a fair sportswoman in her own right, just at school level and that, and was a very strong woman, beautiful looking woman. She actually was Miss Ireland at once. She got crowned Miss Ireland back in the 50s.
Well, you've been Mr. Melbourne for about 45 years. That's surprised.
So, anyway, and Dad, he never got capped, because you didn't get capped if you sat on the bench. But he's a front row forward, a loose head prop for Ireland. 5'11", 17 and a half stone, so a big man, not overly tall. Got a bit of height out of Mum, and he was one of those types of fathers that loved his son immeasurably. Never, ever complimented me once. Always said, "Well done." Yeah. That was it. Yep. That's as good as you got. You never got, "Oh, you're better than him. You can do better than that. You can go." Never got that. Yeah. So I was always, I don't know whether you take on that persona, but you seek approval from a hard love type parenting system. And I think that has a lot to do with it. Culturally, the background of that diversity between Protestant, Roman Catholic, there was always, not between my parents, but there was always political discussion about how tough our countries found it and had it, and so.
Did you ever get over there much?
Oh,
Any time travel through there?
Just move that around a bit. Yeah, lots, a lot. I haven't counted. I would imagine somewhere around 12 to 15 times. Went back with my mum.
A bit like how many times I've been to Vegas.
Now, you've got an excuse for not remembering how many times to Vegas. First time I went back, I was 4. My oldest brother was born in Ireland. Yep. Dad came out, worked for 2 years, made enough money for Mum to come out, follow him out. Settled here.
You were born out here, weren't you?
Dad's first arrived in Queensland, played with a team called Brothers up there in Brisbane. Found it a little hot for that Irish background. So
let's go south.
How far can I move south to get cooler weather without leaving the mainland? He didn't want to go to Tasmania.
Not many people do.
I said, go to Melbourne. So he went to Melbourne, and Mum arrived out shortly after that. My next brother up, he was born here, and I was born here in '64. Yeah.
So you played for the Frankston Juniors? Was AFL always?
Frankston Rovers.
Frankston Rovers, sorry.
Oh, Finch, you've got to understand Australian rules football.
Yeah, was that foreign to you? Because it would have been foreign to your old man, wouldn't it? Even though I know you.
He adopted
straight away.
He was like the prime example of a first generation Australian. Yeah. Kept his historical country origin and was proud of it, but he adopted everything Australia. And he got into, didn't truly understand it, but he became the local team manager for our juniors, my brother's team, my team, and he cut the oranges up and fill out the team sheets and all that, which you need that. So he really adopted Australia.
The junior game is based on that, isn't it?
Absolutely, Well, it doesn't go ahead if you don't have those volunteers. So you have to understand that in Melbourne in the 70s, you could not drive home from school in your parents' car with them, turn a street corner and not have to put the brakes on because of kids kicking an Aussie
the
rules
footy,
football on the street. You don't see it anymore with these phones and whatever. The amount of children who'd be on the street kicking the footy was phenomenal. It really was. In one block, you might find 3 or 4 different groups of kids kicking the ball from 4 o'clock in the afternoon till 5 o'clock. It's just what you did. Everyone did it. Everyone wanted to play Australian rules football, and we watched our team. We got the replay on Saturday nights, and we aspired to be VFL players in those days before it became a national game, AFL.
Well, everyone aspired. Not many people achieve it, and I had to check this fact a few times. It's knowing you. It's now it's not so amazing. It's actually amazing, but knowing you the way I do, there's some stories I've heard. But mate, you debuted in 1992 in the final series. 82, sorry.
Well, I wish it was 92. I'd be a young man.
Versus
still,
North Melbourne now.
First semi-final.
Now, mate, most coaches in any sport, well, let's ease a bloke in maybe a trial game, a practice match, or a game there's not so much pressure on. No, we'll throw you in first semi-final, and not only that,
Cutthroat final.
You've kicked 5 goals.
I was pretty good.
Well, it tends to suggest you're all right. But,
only joking.
Mate, but knowing your persona, even at that age, were you going, beautiful, this is a perfect setup, or were you thinking, shit, this is a semi-final, what are they doing to me?
Well, you mentioned knowing that. I always had self-doubt before I got to the club. And I was small for the position I played. But then when I was at the club training and playing against literally legends,
I go, all right.
Holding up all right against these blokes. I'm doing things that they can't really do themselves. And only when you're there, as a 14, 15-year-old, you see the AFL players. And it'd be the same for you.
Yeah.
Sitting back there in Newey, and you're seeing, Terry Lamb and those blokes. They're mythical.
Yeah.
They are mythical creatures. You think,
you can't do what they do, can you?
I hope to reach that level and just be able to play against them. I might even take out my autograph book and ask them for an autograph. Yeah. And then you sort of get confidence when you play and train against them at club level. Yeah. And then I was dreadfully injured from 6 to just niggling injuries, one after the other. And these days we draft kids at 18 and we put them on 60, 70% the loads, which we put the seasoned 24, 5, 6-year-old veteran on. We just threw them all in those days. So my body struggled to keep up with it. And I'd got soft tissue injuries from 16, 17. I turned 18. I was about 18 and 3 weeks when I got my first game. And I just felt like it was beyond. I had to wait too late. And to be totally honest, the club had wanted me to be fit before then. I'd have played at 17, I reckon, if I had body had stood up. My coach, one of the greatest men I think has ever lived, Alan Jeans, the most morally sound man I've ever met. And he hated he loved me, he loved the flair, but he hated seeing anyone get ahead of themselves. And he saw that in me, and he fathered me like the way my father fathered me. And he rang up. They used to put in the team in the paper on a Thursday night. And then they'd put in the 2 interchanges. And then it became 5 names for the interchange. And I was one of the 5 in that final. And I looked at it and went, well, he's named in the team. He's a bit sore. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the bench. I'm the one true forward. The others are midfielders.
Yeah, I'm going to be fine.
I'll be playing. And so Alan Jeans rang up and said, all right, how are you, son? This is on the Friday. I said, yeah, pretty good, Yabby. That was his nickname, Yabby at Biggie's. And he said, look, I think we might be able to slot you in tomorrow for your first game. And I said, yeah, I thought you might.
Yes, no surprise.
And he screamed down the phone at me, don't get ahead of yourself,
But
son.
you had a special bond, didn't you?
You and loved him. Yeah, he was like my dad. Yeah. I knew he loved me in his own unique way. It's hard football saying the word love, but it really was. And I even take away from ex-footballers who were in the media who say to other media, "Oh, you don't understand. You weren't playing." That's rubbish. Yeah. You don't have to have been to the moon to see that it's there. They can make comments to non-playing media, but in this case, to understand the love that exists between a cherished player and his coach, who from the age of 15 has you in his tutelage 4 nights, 4 days a week, plus game day. And he's telling you about life. He's telling you how to control yourself. He's telling you how to play. He's telling you how to present yourself, how to talk at the media.
Give you a kick in the ass when you need it.
Absolutely. Yeah. He's as much of a father by default as your real father. Yeah. And you develop a bond, and unless you've had that bond, you don't really understand. Yeah. So he ripped me apart down the phone before my first game, and not only did I think I would not be sitting on the bench, I knew I'd be on the ground. So I rocked up and he said, "Now don't get overawed, son. You're going to start at full forward." And I went, yeah. Expect that. And didn't touch it in the first quarter, ran around like a headless chook. Second quarter, went all right, kicked 3. So, it was good. He got on the end of... Well, Lee Matthews is the greatest player of all time. He decided he was going to give a cameo role in the middle. And when he got it, I thought, if I can just make a break into space, he ain't missing. Yeah.
Mate, your style, Dermy, it's why I say unique, and I just think this with any sport, especially rugby league as well. And, a lot of the players who have the flair and got a lob for the spotlight and they've got a bit of show pony about them, when the blowtorch is put on them, their underbelly's usually pretty soft. That doesn't happen with you. You got a love of the flair and you've got the skill and the blonde hair and but you're one of the toughest pricks in the game, and you don't shirk that side. And you've got the old school wall. I'll short you up, you short me up. It's the old eye for an eye.
Shake hands after.
Yeah. No, you have a beer. There's no cheap. It's a different. I know it's a different game than it is now, but that's quite a unique mix. Because not only usually the assassins, the tough old school, they're usually quiet. So they
making up for lack in their own game.
Yeah. So you're not putting yourself. No, you're putting your head on the opposition chopping block because of your flair and your skill. But then you're taking the bullets as well. It's a double. It's a double-edged sword you got going there.
It is, thanks for that. That's what I set out to be.
Because you can't, the way you play, you're like doing the both. You're the man we've got to stop, but then you're the enforcer as well. Usually you got your best player, then you've got someone who's his bodyguard. So you're doing everyone's bodyguard as well as being the star player.
So the starting price for my position is about 6'4". Yeah. In Stones days, that's and probably a 15 stoner. I'm 6'1.5", and 14 and a touch. Yeah. And so you learn your deficiencies. You learn to sum up the bloke you're on. You learn to sum up his strengths. And I won't say video review, but before video was invented, I was video reviewing opponents and working out how to beat them. Yeah. And I knew that there were big, tough, nasty men, and they would play from behind, and they would bang you in the back of the... At the end of my career, over 12 months, my surgeon, one of my great mates, Peter Wilson, when I'd go and see him, probably over 3 years, in fact, not 12 months, he'd say, "Right, you got any more today?" And I say, "Yeah, there's one over here." We had 6 or 7 calcifications cut out of the back of my scalp just from blokes going bang into the back of your head. And my belief was, well, it's got to be a two-way street. Yeah. It was a hard game back then, but I don't know, Finch, you strike me as the kind of bloke, and I've seen you play, obviously. I know you are the kind of bloke. The time you are most alive is when you're in danger. It's anyone can run out and play a game against the bottom side and tear them apart. I mean, they're good now, but what was once the Brisbane Bears, we'd go out there and we'd kick 30 goals to their 6. You'd kick 5 goals yourself. You had 25 touches and come off the ground and you go, day in the office. You'd play the next week against Essendon.
And it was on. Yeah.
And you'd win or lose by inside 10 points.
Yeah.
The bloke you played on, hold you, punch in the back of the head. You'd get the side of your ear stitched up. You'd throw one back at him. He'd have his nose broken. You'd have a split in the eye. He'd have a split in his lip. You shake hands at the end and you'd think, wasn't that good fun?
Exactly right.
I'm alive.
Mate, all the games I remember aren't the ones you're flogging. It's the ones you're down 14-0, you win 20-4, like, you know. Or the ones you're on the road and the crowd's fucking into you, know.
Are you allowed to swear on this, are you?
You're allowed to do whatever we want. You know, I remember playing at Campbelltown once and this old lady throwing ice at us as we're running out. It's like, and the West Tigers early days, they weren't a great team when they first come together, but you know what? They made it uncomfortable for you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it was always a shit of a game in terms of spectacle, but they weren't great, but you might just get away with the win, you know? And you was like, fucking, your head had to be on a swivel during the game.
You mentioned that. There was one time playing against Footscray, and it's quite draconian, their old system out there, and it was quite a barren and much unloved ground by terms of money that was put into it. And you've got the old lattice wire, you know, the chain wire on the side of the races you run down. And we've come up at half-time, and Terry Wallace, tough man, but out of 10 dirtiness, I was an 11, he was a -1. Terry played on our team, and the umpire got it wrong and reported him, which he ended up getting off. And we were walking up the race at half-time, and there was a bloke, hands and fingers up the wire, and he's there, like they go, you rotten effing mongrel, Wallace, spat. And I'm behind him, and I've gone, bang,
hit the bloke
on the chain wire, and it went zing, and he went, oh, and fell back, and he had the wire marks in his face.
Well, I loved a quote of, this is what you said about your style. He said, look, you look to take somebody out, and willfully take somebody out, and then there's a pause, but within the rules.
Can't do that anymore, can you? Yeah. But it was legal.
Yeah.
It was legal. You saw that in your sport. Yeah, it was legal. It was a simplistic and vulgar attitude to the game.
But how did, you know, and it's not like and this is what I'm, you know, I admire a lot of things about your career, Dermy, but this is what I most admire. It's not like you missed like you got hammered as well.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like that's what I love about it. It's not like you stood there and bullied it. Like you knew playing your style, they're going to come for you as well, and you didn't hide from it.
So it's like playing forward, playing as a forward, a lead-up forward. You've got to be in front. Your direct opponent is always behind you. It's akin to being a batsman in cricket. You can't win unless you have runs on the board. You score. You can't win in AFL unless you score, which is the forward stop. So you're up the striker's end, and the bowler's a bowl and bounces at you. You've got to take what's coming. If you're playing in forward to
you're
score,
never going to be chasing the defender, are you? He's always in behind you.
They're punching you in the back of the head. And so my belief was, if you lead out and you know one's coming, and I see it now, and I still, when I'm commentating, say, keep your chin up.
Yeah.
Some blokes run out and they go, oh, it's coming. You can't mark the ball if your chin's down and your eyes are down because you know it's coming. Must be there. And I say, keep your chin up. So you got to wear it. You have to wear it. And then if for some reason it can change around because of the circumstances of where the ball is, well, you can do the same. Back in those days.
Did you know you know, you come into that team in '82. Did you know how good a team you're coming into?
No.
And did you know what you were about to embark on the next decade?
No. I'd played that first game. Peter Knights was out injured. The great Peter Knights. He actually played. The first game he played that game, and came off halfway through the game injured, and he was in the rooms after the game in tears, even though we won, because he'd had a horror run with injury. He came back and played another 20, 30 games and was always brilliant. A wonderful, wonderful man, an all-time great. Lee Matthews was in that side, the greatest player of all time. Kelvin Moore, one of the prince of full-backs, you know, just a champion, all-time great. Chris Mew was a young man. He turned into an all-time great centre-half back. Chris Langford, one of my teammates, played 300 games, was still in the reserves, hadn't
Couldn't get
made it
start.
at that stage. Dunstall, Platten, hadn't been recruited to the club.
Yeah.
So we're still yet to put together. I caught the back end of the Matthews era. And so I was, that's why a lot of my great teammates like Jason and those boys played in 4 premierships. I clipped the back end of Lee Matthews for the 83 premiership. Gary Ayres, similar to me, a little bit older, but he was able to play in 5 as well. As I said, Chris Mew, a couple of years older than me, but still had a youngish body, so he's played in 5 as well. So we went through together same time, and then we had to rebuild after 83. We lost in 84, probably should have won. We lost in 85, Essendon were clearly the best team, but we semi-rebuilt, and we still had some good players around my era, my age, and we had some wonderful soldiers too.
So you're talking. You win again. So you lose 84, 85. You win 86.
Have a 3-year rebuild. Yeah.
But so by this stage you're probably a senior player. But by 86 you're what? 22.
22.
And you played 4 grand. Played in 4 grand finals.
I think it was 1990 before I didn't play in a grand final. Well, to put it in perspective,
that's ridiculous. I spoke to Cameron Munster the other day.
Yeah. He's going similar,
well,
isn't he?
He's 26. He's played 25. He's played 6 years. Yeah. He's played in 4 grand finals, 1, 2. His worst place is coming 3rd. So he's played 2 prelims.
That was the year I spoke to.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what I mean? That's just ridiculous. But that's people go their whole careers without playing in a grand final. You know, you're a seasoned vet for grand finals by the age of 21, 20, 22.
Yeah, it was. It was very. I take my hat off and run up the white flag. I was very fortunate to be there at the right time.
But you'd obviously have to deliver to take advantage of the opportunity.
For sure.
Yeah.
But there's 18 on the field for us.
Yeah.
So, and as Alan Jean said, you only need one weak link in the chain. Yeah, and that can bring the whole house down. So, very fortunate to be there at the same time as those. To put it in perspective, we won the night premiership in 88.
Yeah.
The day premiership 88, the night premiership in 89, the day premiership in 89, and only lost 3 games in both of those seasons. So it's
a big period of dominance, isn't it?
We played, I think, 56 or 57 games and lost 6 games. So from the 87 grand final, which your partner's old man tailed us up out there to the Dom, and Reece got hold of me.
He still whinges he didn't get a Norm Smith. Fucking 40 years later.
Hey, I love Reece and he's a great bloke, but he's the only player in the history of the Norm Smith medal, and I keep having to bear it. Whose opponent got more possessions than him? But Jono was super. So we lost the 87.
But even 85, you kicked 6 goals or something in a losing game too, don't you?
8, please, Brett.
8 goals. Jesus, 6.
So we lost the 87 and lost 6 games, won 4 premierships on offer.
Yep.
The next time after the 87, and in those 6 games, I was either injured or suspended.
Yeah.
I didn't play in a losing team from September 87 until April 1990.
That's ridiculous.
It was just unfathomable. The record of that team from my first game until I departed the club. I didn't play a game in my last season at Hawthorn. I was too injured. But the record, and this is actually fact, the greatest losing sequence Hawthorn had between 82 and 92 was 2 losses in a row.
That's unbelievable.
We lost 2 in a row. Never lost 3 in a row. It
doesn't happen, does it?
No.
Maybe for a couple of years, not 10 years.
Oh, we would call crisis emergency meetings after a second loss. So we were very fortunate to have a wonderful team, great coaches. Yeah.
You mentioned then your suspension. I know you got, obviously, the way you play the tracks, the eyes of the judiciary. How was it with the coach? Like, because usually you don't, like in league, I always say you need 5 front rowers in your club. 2 starting, 2 on the bench, and 1 of them always should be suspended.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's how it should be.
Yes.
Like Rob, so you want your enforcers, you don't mind them one of them, you got to wear that because that's the role they. You're the star. You're an important part of the team to actual win. You're like it's like Joey Johns being the enforcer. Well, yeah, I want you to be tough and lead the way, but I don't want you to get suspended too often because you're our main man come weekends. Were you ever sort of told, look, just be careful over here because we need you?
Was I told?
Alan he just didn't listen.
Pull his hair out. Yeah. You know the story about the scorpion and the frog.
No, Scorpion.
Frog is on the side of the screen. The scorpion lobs up and jumps on his back. And the frog says, don't kill me. He said, why would I kill you? I want to get to the other side. Take me to the other side. Halfway across, the scorpion stings the frog. And the frog says, why have you done that? I'm going to die now. You're going to drown as well. And he says, I'm sorry. It's just in my nature.
Exactly.
So it was just in my nature. We had Gary Ayres down the back line. What a champion bloke. An all-time great as well. We had Dipper in the middle. And myself up forward. So we had three blokes who were willing to carry the fight outside of playing footy to the opposition in each area of the ground. So it was, and Alan Jeans used to say to me, I can't afford to lose you, son. If it starts, just let some idiot like Dipper run in. Well, you stay out of it. Yeah, and Dipper was a champion too. I'm selling him short there. I love the bloke. But Jeans, he used to, the runner would be sent out to me.
Stay away.
From Jeans.
Stay away.
You get out of it. Stay out of it. I remember Georgie Stone once, who's a runner and been around footy clubs. He was Paul Roos's right-hand man at Sydney, and he went up there. He loved the place. I was having a wrestle and a fight with Big Reno. Stephen Reynoldsson played for the Brisbane Bears. Wasn't a great game, but Reno was punching me in the back of the head. So, big guy Reno, could look after himself. Good-looking fella, pretty good player. And started fighting and didn't concentrate on the ball. We're going to win anyway. Who cares? And Georgie ran out onto the ground with the message. Georgie told me this. And there was a few of us who had blonde hair in the forward line. Russell Morris, Chris Whitman. And the message was, get out there, George, and tell that big blonde poofter to pull his head in. Pardon, I know, but that's the vernacular of the day. I'm not, and anyone, tell that big blonde poof to pull his head in. Anyway, I'm standing on the mark for having given away a free kick, stupidly. And George is running, making a beeline for me. And I've looked at him and I've screamed, what the F do you want? And he ran straight past me to Russell Morris and said, pull your finger out, you big blonde. He just kept going. And when he went back in, he said, what did he say? And George said, nothing. He just made sure he got the wrong big blonde hack. Yeah.
Mate, you look at your teams, and obviously Lee Matthews early, but there's Buchanara, Dipper, like you mentioned, Dunstall, Ayres, and on and on. But that's a lot of egos, and great teams have egos, and it's a good arrogance, and teams that are dynasties like yours and who change the culture or change the face of games, there is those egos. How did you get it to work? Because in the end, you were a great team. Now there was you
should ask them. The kingpin doesn't worry about that.
Exactly.
No, I'm only gagging.
But it was a great team, and if there's someone thinks they're better than the rest, it doesn't work. And there's so many alpha dogs in that team. For you all to check your egos at the door, it must have been a special.
It never needed to be said. It never needed to be said. There was a common respect for each and every player. Yeah. You made the team, and you had your net worth as a player. There was a common respect that existed, and you showed that respect to your teammates. I can tell you, I haven't played 211 games, 189 of them at Hawthorn. Yeah. There was only one time I have ever heard two players argue out in the field. We would play certain teams, and without throwing darts, like Melbourne Footy Club, they were some good players. They made the 88 grand final. There were some good players, but there was a wonderful front-running team. If you could create confusion, would they turn on each other? I only ever heard two players once turn on each other, and that was at three-quarter time in the 1984 grand final. And somebody was asking who was on Baker. at the three-quarter time huddle for us, and they started arguing between each other, and we stood there and looking backwards and forwards thinking, we've never seen this. They overran us.
Yeah.
It was the only time I've ever seen. And it didn't need to be mentioned, it didn't need to be said. I never, ever saw any criticism of any other player directly at the club.
Yeah.
You could turn around and say, hey Finchy, I made the front position, mate. I was on the lead. Come on, mate. Don't drop it at my feet.
Yeah.
Just
put it on me.
Yeah. And
well, that's constructive, isn't it? It's not.
Absolutely.
And
there's
I probably
a way
know I should hit you on.
You're playing league footy.
Yeah, exactly.
Put it lace out, you bastard, or I'll get you dropped.
Mate, well, what was so great about the teams you're in? Well, what made them? What made that Hawthorn team? I remember growing up in Sydney, or in Newcastle at the time, and like that, I'd known of the Hawthorn team. That's how big that your team transcended sport. There's great cultural or great dynasties in sport. That your Hawthorn team dominated for over the best part of a decade. What made that team so good? The club so good at that period.
I have my own beliefs on certain players and the likes, and how good they were. But Kevin Bartlett summed it up to me. He coached Richmond, and we used to, without a word of a lie, occasionally we would see team buses rock up at our training, and off would get opposition teams just to watch us train.
Yeah.
And that was the standard they wanted to get to.
Yeah.
Kevin Bartlett told me, he said once, and I didn't even realise, so in your sport, State of Origin, which you've played 1 or 2?
3.
3, there you go.
Yeah.
I cut you short, sorry.
Not by much.
That's besides winning a premiership, a grand final, that's the pinnacle, State of Origin. And it's pretty bloody important for us too. Not as much as you guys, it's life and death. But it's a good feather in your cap. It displays just what your worth is as a player. Kevin Bartlett said to me, I didn't think we could beat your team because you named 20 players against Richmond and 17 of them were current State of Origin players. It's a pretty good...
And back then, I know that the Origin concept didn't last as long as AFL, but it was taken very seriously early days, wasn't it?
It was, and mainly because we believed we were the best state, Victoria. And South Australia and West Australia occasionally would knock us off, and they lived and breathed it. And mate, how would you be now? I can remember going to what's it called, Football Park in Adelaide, and on bed sheets between 2 sticks, banners saying "Kick a Vic," and on another one you see a cartoon character in a Vic jumper with an axe in his head. How could you do that
these days?
And we're like, oh yeah, they're pretty parochial.
Well,
imagine doing that now. That's what it meant to them. Yeah. So we fought back, and we had to get the mantle back. But it's pretty shared.
Yeah. Well, obviously you had a team full of superstars. Is there one of the 5 premierships you won, one of the that stands out more, or a team that you've got fonder memories of more? I know a lot of the teams there's similar players all the way through, but
what's your favourite kid?
Exactly, they're all the same, aren't they? That's why I only got one.
The way I can disseminate between them is that 89 grand final, the second last premiership we won, which is the much heralded one. That probably stands out because as a spectacle, it was brutal and it was the hardest to win. Hawthorn had been in existence for 125 years, but only in the league since 1925. They'd never won back-to-back premierships. So we set ourselves. We won 88 very easily against Melbourne, and we had to win back-to-back. But it was brutal. It really was brutal. So that stands out.
Going on to name some of the rivals, not only for the team but individually you had during that run. I know obviously there's Essendon, there's Carlton, Geelong in '89.
Yeah.
But was there a ding-dong battle individually, or just the teams that stand out more for yourself?
Oh, look, Ross Glendenning was the best player I ever played on. Roscoe won a Brownlow medal. So when I was a young kid, 19, 20, 21 playing against Roscoe. He was a little bit taller, a little bit faster, a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, a little bit better. I thought, I'm going to battle here. I checked this all out. And so he towed me up first time, and then I watched him, and I'd worked out, and I had a real good endurance tank for a key forward. Even I was a bit shorter, and I was half fast. I'd worked out I could run him, and I'd worked out that at the end of the game I could come in with 16 to 20 possessions, and all of them would be in time on of each quarter because I'd run him into the ground.
Exactly.
He'd beat me for the first 15 minutes of each quarter, and I'd get a few touches in the last 7-8 minutes of each quarter after I'd exhausted him. So worked that out until I got, you really mature in our sport at 23, 24, till I got a lot stronger, and by then he'd gone to the forward line. There was a bloke, Peter Foster, played for Footscray. Ripping bloke, but once again, hardest, probably the nastiest player I played against. He slid in front of me once. I went for the mark, and he slid in front, and I went, the old adage, bang. I thought, my turn. Banged him in the back of the head, and as he looked at me, he took the mark, and as he went back behind me to kick over the mark, I'm standing on the mark, and he's looked at me and gone, going to be like that, is it? I went, yeah, whatever. He played on me another 6 times, let me slide in front of him on the lead each time, 4 quarters, probably 5 leads a quarter, 20 a match.
How many in the
Played
back of
on
the
me
head?
another 6 times. I estimate he punched me in the back of the head 120 times. And he had the ability to jump behind you, punch you in the back of the head, and run his stops down the back of your leg at the same time. He was very hard to play against. There were some great players as well. Terry Danaher, what a competitor. Super bloke. Gary Pert was seriously good before he did his knee. Paul Roosie was a fantastic player, but he gave you a shot. He liked the ball more than he liked stopping you as a forward. So you'd come off the ground, and Fitzroy people would say, he's played well, Roosie. He got 25 possessions, took 6 intercept marks, and played really well. He did. I kicked 4.
Exactly. You knew you were going to get a couple the other way.
He'd give you a few shots.
Mate, you've got some of the most memorable moments in the game you're involved in. I just want to run through a couple. Some I didn't know, mate. This one just makes me laugh just thinking about it. When you run through the huddle of Essendon, like, mate, can you explain one? And I'm going.
What would happen if you did it,
mate? It's unheard of. Thinking about watching AFL now and thinking about someone fucking running through the opposition team huddle at half. Explain more about it. I want to say that at the end, obviously it's against Essendon. Kevin Sheedy's the opposition coach. What he says, the quote he says is absolutely priceless. But run through first. What were you thinking?
Not a lot.
And what did your teammates say when you did it?
Jason Dunstall took a mark. Billy Duckworth, ripping bloke, and I could see him alter his step to try and knee Jason in the head as he was falling to the ground. He's on 99 goals. So I ran up to Bill, push and shove, and Bill had headbutted me earlier in my career, so I put my head right in there daring him, and he didn't, so I just pulled him in closer and kissed him. And so we're actually...
If you can't headbutt him, kiss him.
So we're actually having a laugh. And I went back, and Jason's lining up for his 100th. 20 seconds before the 3/4 time. He's kicked. I've pushed Bill. He's pushed me. He's pushed me in the chest. We're on the goal line, and it's going to go 30, 40 metres over our heads. I've taken a step back as he's pushed me. I've got my arm above his, pushed him, got him here, and he's gone, and the umpire's gone, too high, reverse the free kick.
So he doesn't
get the 100. So he runs.
That's a good start anyway. He would have been filthy, wouldn't he?
So, yeah. So
Dunstall would have been filthy, I mean. These hundreds.
He's filthy anyway. Yeah. And the pig. And my best mate's Chris Whitman. Yeah. Life best mate's Chris Whitman. He's playing with me, number 10. So a few of the boys come in, Essendon, and we're pushing and shoving. The siren goes, and I'm screaming at the umpire. And the only time ever in my career I felt like the umpire should feel the back of my hand, because he gave it on ego.
Yeah.
It wasn't,
and because it was you as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't a free kick.
Yeah.
Billy acted it, and he should have known better, the umpire. Anyway, so Dunstall has decided, well, he did that. He can fight against those three Essendon players. Leave it to him. And Whitty's on the outskirts, so he's run off, and I have grappled, whatever, and then the umpires come in and said, and I've got face to face and just screaming at him. I screamed at that umpire so long. Both huddles have
Huddle up.
formed.
Yeah.
Ours is on the other side of Essendon, so I'm jogging towards our huddle with Whitty, and I get to about 25 metres out from their huddle, and Whitty starts go around, and I went, nah, bugger
Straight
it.
through.
Bugger this. So I picked up a bit of speed, went through, and in those days, the coach stood in the middle and delivered the sermon, and he'd go round in the circle. They're all around him. So it was good. Halfway through, they're all facing away from me. I could get through all right. Went past Sheedy, which is the halfway point, obviously. But then they're facing me. And they're punching me on the top of the head and punching me in the body. I get through to the other side. Yeah, somehow made it past Mark Harvey and Roger and Bomber Thompson, all nasty pieces of work. Good players, great blokes. Get through to the other side. 30 metres to 40 metres to jog to my group. Alan Joyce was the coach. Whitty joins up again.
He comes back in.
Yeah. So we get there and Joycey's seen it, saw it, and he starts berating me. And then as I just keep walking into the pack, stood there hands on, and at this stage, I'm good to go at anyone.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I'll give him a few seconds, and I'm not copping much more.
Yeah.
And his final words were, give me one reason why I shouldn't banish you to the bench for an act like that. And I said to him, and I'm still heated, and I just looked at him, and just in a fairly nasty undertone, I said, the game's really close and I'm the best you've got.
Hey, what did he say?
And he...
Did you go to the bench?
He stared at me.
Of course he did.
He just stared at me and said, were you in it as well, Whitty?
So off straight to the next one.
I got a message from the league. We don't have a ruling to cover this, but it will come under conduct unbecoming if it happens again.
I love Kevin Sheedy's.
He's a ripper.
Kevin Sheedy's great.
He's a ripper.
Just another mad Irishman.
That's it.
Well, he's just another mad Irishman. It was no big deal.
So my coach and Sheedy didn't like each other.
Yeah.
There was a bit of, they had their differences, and I loved my coach, Yabby, but I really liked Sheedy. I would have loved to have been coached by him just for a year.
Yeah.
Had him in a few State of Origin games. He was right up my alley.
Yeah. Well, mate, another thing. This is a story I remember you telling me. I'd like for you to tell it again. Involved, I think it was the Palais in a Harley Davidson, and you back in your prime.
No, that was the...
Was it in town?
Metro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're talking you're on your Harley. What are we? Early 90s, late 80s?
Yeah. Yeah, so I had a...
and you're just about... You'd be at your peak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had a Harley Softail Custom. FX STC. And a mate of mine was the manager at the Metro, and that used to get 2,000-3,000 people in it. And you'd go in, it's top of Burke Street, you'd go in the big foyer, up 2 steps into that foyer, and then up about 8 steps. And it became a bit of a... I was up here 3 steps up into the foyer, and then there was about 8 steps up to go up to the God's Bar and whatever, straight at the end of the foyer. So anyway, I went in, and it just started to lightly rain, and there was about, 400 people queued up
at the front
to get in.
Yep.
And there's a bit of an overarching awning, and my mate used to let me park the motorbike there, and it was raining and there was too many people, so I went, nah, bugger it. Ba-bum.
Straight in on the Harley.
Rode up into
What about security guards? Just in you go.
They're like, what the? And one of them, Robbie, big Maori, 145 kilos of him, tough as. He's looked at me, not with anger in his face, but what the hell are you doing? I thought he might come over and just grab me and lift me out. And I quickly turned the bike off and threw him the keys. And he caught them.
He would have had more shock.
I just put the helmet on the sissy bar and walked off. And Robbie copped it. It stayed there for a week.
Exactly. I know it wasn't going anywhere soon. Mate, and obviously, mate, actually, before we get to the famous 89 grand final, there's always on Fox Footy that you strut. That strut in the game. Where did that come from? It's one of the great... It's the...
That came from pure idiocy.
What caused it? Did you just kick a goal or... It's something
look,
I've always wanted to ask
football's
you.
football. While the siren, when the siren goes... Yep. Until the whistle blows for the stop of that actual play, it's business.
Yep.
But football's theatre, sports theatre. There's time for a bit of show, a bit of mucking around, and the umpire goes, play on again. You focus again, refocus. I loved that byplay in it.
Yeah.
And the wrestlers were big in those days. They still are big. But there was a bloke called Brutus Beefcake. Yeah. He used to strut around the ring. And so, anyway, I kicked in the 85 grand final. They were a much better team than us. And in the first, 10 minutes, I kicked 3 goals. So it's fair to say I was having a pretty good day at that stage.
You ended up kicking 8, don't you, that day?
Yeah, so
that's in the grand final at the start.
Yeah. There's only 110,000 there. So,
why am I not surprised?
So, yeah, I probably should have left it because after that third one I did that strut and Kevin Sheedy put Terry Danaher onto me and spit a Walsh off me. He was a good player himself, but I had his measure that day. And I might have kicked another couple earlier because Terry was a serious player. Got a bag after that. And Terry, I was seriously on that day in a losing team, and Terry kept me to 5 more, so I kicked 8. But if Terry hadn't played, I might have kicked 10. Yeah, I might have. I don't know. But that's the way it goes.
Mate, you had such an awareness of the big occasion, and all great players do, all the champions do, and I. This is just for my sport, but in any sport, when people go, he's only a big game player. Well, that's when you want to be
playing for.
Exactly. Gee, he's only big game. Well, that's when that's when the soul of who you are is really tested most. Like anyone, like a bit of downhill skier, and like you said, when you play the bottom team, you bash up on them. But when all the chips are in the middle of the table, that's when the test of a player is at its highest. Now, the 89 grand final, it's one of the most memorable moments in Australian sporting history. How does it start? Is there something that happens before this, or was there a plan for you?
Yeah, it did start. First of all,
Hawthorn versus Geelong, who doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You get taken out off the ball. You get blindsided off the ball. Obviously,
I had it coming.
Yeah, in '89, you've been on top of you've been one of the best teams for a long time, and you've been obviously one of the best players for a long time. But you get taken out straight off the centre bounce of the game.
Yeah. To start, and we'll talk about that. But to start with it, once again, your partner's old man, Jono, he was a big game player.
Yeah.
He was the epitome of a big game. What a champion. There's certain blokes who, when you're an experienced player, they'll come up to you and say, oh, mate, this is grand final. This is 100,000 plus out there.
Shit himself.
How do I say, just go out there and just breathe it in.
Yeah.
Be that moment. You guys get big crowds at State of Origin and your grand finals.
These are every second week.
To stand in the middle of the MCG and it goes up like that, the stands, and you stand and you stand in a circle at the start of a grand final and you look around and there is 110,000 people within 120 metres of where you're standing and they're looking at you. And you know, depending on their preferences, you can make them scream, yell, shout with joy, or cry. You feel like you're emboldened, and you breathe that in. And some blokes are going to go, and some are going to go, oh, this is the moment of my life. And it is. It is the best moment of your life. There's no
that
apart from
adrenaline you
seeing your
can't
kids
find
born,
anywhere
a different
else
thing.
in your life, can you? You're never going to get that anywhere
You can never
else.
experience it again. People say, "What's it like when you run out?" I don't know. It's like an atomic wedgie. You are not. Your feet don't touch the ground. You're hearing one, and I mean, it's not like you yell in this. You're sitting in the stand. He, she doesn't yell. Everyone yells when the team runs out on the ground in a ground. 100,000+ voices yell. It is extraordinary.
Yep.
It's extraordinary, and I loved it and failed in it, succeeded in it. But like Roosevelt said, it's the man in the arena. Yeah. I loved it. That 89 season, we played against Geelong. They had a player, I wasn't playing on him, about my size, pretty good player, ripping bloke, Mark Yates. He was playing on Punkadeer, who had a pumpkin head. He's actually got pancreatic cancer at the moment, so we send out a cheer to him. He's a good luck buddy boy. Anyway, the ball went out of bounds. And as we go for ruckman, you can run and jump out, stay apart, run and jump, but if a bloke is good with his body, he'll hip you out and then he'll tap.
Yeah.
Punker wasn't a jumper. He's 6'3", 6'3.5", and for us, 105, 108 kilos. He was a body. So he'd lock arms and push sideways on a bloke my size, Yatesy, 91, 92 kilos. And so they've locked arms. I've just yelled at an umpire 30 seconds ago, and I was getting held by my bloke. And I'm screaming. You keep an eye out for it. Anyway, he said, "Yeah, I'll keep an eye out." I knew he wouldn't. I looked up. The ball's about to get thrown in, so I sprint side on for this. I'm third man up, and I knee, and Punker's locked in Yatesy, and Yatesy puts his arm up.
So Yatesy's obviously playing for Geelong. He's the Geelong player.
Yeah. And I sprint at him and I lift my knee and run and pretend to go for the ball, and I split him. And I think I ruptured one of his testicles. Yeah, most of us blokes
that'll put you on the hit list, won't it?
Yeah, most of us blokes who sort of part-time ruckman aren't all that good at it. Most of us have one ruptured testicle somewhere that happens. He had motivation.
When was that round?
Round 6.
Oh, so they've held that the whole season.
Yeah, we only played them one of the vagaries of the draw that season. We only played them. Oh, my eyes are watering in this wind. We only played them the once. The stretcher came out for him, and they're carrying him off, and I'm walking along next to the stretcher. I just didn't do that and just under position. I gave him a little send off as well. I said, yeah, this,
when he's on the stretcher.
Yeah. And anyway, yeah, Yatesy, he's separated now, but I walked along and I just threw it in. Had no meaning. It was just rubbish locker room talk. I said, "You'll be in hospital all night tonight, Yatesy. Good looking woman, your wife. She's home alone. She might get a knock on the door tonight." Anyway, he was yelling at me there. Trainers are saying, "You're a effing this." Yeah. And I was. That was the day. Got to the grand final. Mark,
did you know it was coming?
No.
Had you heard word that
Alan Jeans had an inkling. He tried to convey it to me without saying too much. Paul Couch won the Brownlow medal during the week. And there was a thing where if the ball was there and you weren't even playing it in those days and you were facing me, I could run in and bang.
Well, they've actually changed the rules because of you, haven't they, really?
Yes. Yeah. So it was pretty easy to do. I found it, and as I say, it was within the rules. That was the rules. Yeah. It was like boxing. Yeah. You're allowed to punch him in the head. You're allowed to run in and put the point of your shoulder into the bloke's head. Remember back in the day, like 30, 40 years ago, you could literally spear tackle blokes over the tackle coming low, and the second bloke in would go bang. Yeah, that's been outlawed now. So it's both sports are cleaned up a bit. Yeah. Anyway, so they were scared I was going to get Couchy, who was a seriously good on baller. Yeah. And at the last moment, I wasn't.
No.
I was just going to run in and have a go at anyone.
Yeah.
If somebody was wide open, I was going to say, well,
Come
-1 will help us. Anyway, so Malcolm Blight, the Geelong coach, had set Yatesy up to go to the wing, even though he wasn't going to play there, and just beeline me and do it to me, which is fair in those days. And stupid me, I just narrowed me. I had really good peripheral vision.
Yeah.
But I just narrowed into the 4 Geelong players in the middle, sprinted in, and at the last millisecond, Yatesy's coming at me. Not enough time to do anything, and I went, oh no.
Yeah, it's
Pulled
coming.
this in, bang.
And so you saw it like late, when you're too late to do
Millisecond
it.
late, yeah. Didn't get me in the head. I was kind of in a high running motion, so he got low and really compounded it into here. I bounced back like hitting a wall.
Yeah.
Dropped to my knees, got straight back up, because that was the edict, get to your feet and then work out if you're injured or not. Grabbed Yatesy, he grabbed me, and he reckons it was just like air coming out of a balloon. I just sunk to my knees, and he stood over me, said, how's that feel, you dog, and whatever. And I'm going,
So what was the extent of the injuries? It was bad, but wasn't it?
I put a 1 centimetre rupture in my kidneys.
That'll do it.
Yeah, I broke 2 ribs that still stick out there now. I knew I'd broken them. I could feel it. And you know, you've broken ribs. And, you know, that. And I stood up, and I just remember thinking, this can't be the end of my day.
No.
This is the best moment of your life.
Well, for most people, it is the end of their day. We're talking 2 broken ribs and a fucking ruptured kidney. Split.
But
within minutes. What?
Yeah. So
Within
what
minutes, you take a mark and kick a goal, don't you?
The hardest thing to do is, as you know, is get moving again. So the natural reaction to something hurting is saying, ouch. If it really hurts, you yell. If it really, really hurts, you scream and yell. So I've thought, try and run. And I don't care. I don't care if they see me in pain. Yatesy knows he got you real good. Payback was deserved. I'm wearing it. So I took the first step. Mate, I'm surprised that person in the back row of the southern stand didn't hear me scream. And the reverberation of the rib doing that. Second step, I screamed. Third step, in the end, I just ran out of breath screaming. And the ball came down, and you just lock on. It's just, that's the moment. And there's plenty of better goals, plenty of better marks, but that was the moment of my footy career.
And you kicked 3 goals that game?
Yeah, 3 in the first half. Yeah, I ran out of steam. It took its toll.
That's what, I think.
Oh, can I tell you half time?
Yeah.
This is how. Remember our doctors? They loved you. So let's not say they threw you out there. They loved you.
Yeah.
But they understood the moment. So our doctor was Terry Gay. One of our doctors, Terry Gay, former player, and they loved us. They absolutely loved us for what, looking after us. I've gone in. You drink so much fluid during the game. It was a hot day. I've gone in at half time, and I'm in at the urinal, and I've gone, nothing but blood, and I've doc. So Terry's come in, and Pete Wilson, the surgeon. So what's this? And they went, your kidneys. We thought it was just broken ribs, which is what you're dealing with. Your kidneys. And I've gone, well, what? And they said, well, means your kidneys have got some real damage in them. That dark. I said, no.
Obviously the colour of the blood.
It was just, it looked like just blood. Yeah. Anyway, he said, how do you feel? And I said, well, not great. He said, do you think you can keep going? I said, I think I can. And he said, what do you want me to do? Do I take tablets? Or? And he said, no. Well, what do I do? He said, drink a lot of water and don't tell anyone about this. That was the diagnosis.
And it's like the loaded question, do you think you're right to play? You don't want to play. Like, you're fucked.
The natural reaction.
But you don't want to say, no, I can't play.
Yeah.
And mate,
I genuinely felt like I could still go on. Yeah.
Well, that was the beauty of you, was your toughness. And that's what I think, people who aren't as, know who you are, but may say be league supporters, you obviously were in a different, well, for lack of a better word, you were the prima donna of that era. You know, you were the
Warwick might have had me covered in that.
Yeah, yes, but in terms of the you know, you were the
razzle
main act.
dazzle, you loved it.
You know, you had
yeah.
the flair. But mate, you were a much loved teammate because of how fucking tough and competitive and aggressive you were. That's the uniqueness of your style. You're you know, like the Barclay Hotel's just down here, and when I was down here living in Melbourne during my time at the Storm, me and you would frequent that place a lot. We'll catch up for beers there.
G'day, Simon.
Yeah, g'day, Simon the boy. Nearly every Sunday night. Well, pretty much every Sunday night.
Yeah.
But mate, I was amazed. You know, this is 2010, 2011, 2012. You were still a massive superstar. That, you know, and you'd been retired for 20 years. You know, like. So you could only imagine how big a superstar you were then, and in a team environment that can turn some people away, you know. But you were never like that. You know? You're known and beloved for being a great teammate and one of the boys.
Comes to a point where you just decide, you make up your mind.
Yeah.
You know, you play a certain way. You have fun. You're flamboyant. You're not flamboyant. You're dour. You're a prima donna. If you can get the job done, give to your teammates. Just give to your teammates. So I feel very proud that a lot of my teammates have written words to the effect that they loved playing with me. My best mate, Chris Whitman, I became best mates with him after our footy careers. We found, but during the footy career time, you find that you go out occasionally as a small group, click groups, whatever, after the game, and you had your. He was hilarious, great bloke, but I remember that 89 grand final. He stood up and looked at me and he said, "I love playing with you." Yeah. And he was a teammate at that stage who I liked. I said, yeah, me with you too. And he said, "No, you don't understand. I love playing with you." Yeah. And when I stopped and went, it meant the world. Yeah. And I've had teammates say that because...
And it means, obviously, winning premierships brings that love together. But how good it is, and that's what I love when blokes say, "Mate, fuck, you win." You know, you fucked up plenty of times, Fishy, but fuck, we love playing with you because we knew you were going to give everything.
Yeah.
That makes you feel special years down the track when you're finished, don't you?
Absolutely. And I have always had even though I'm the youngest of three boys, I've always had the big brother attitude to those that can't look after themselves. Johnny Platten. I still say he was the best player that I played with in that era. Lee Matthews is the best player I've seen, but I caught him for the last 4 years of his career, which was nowhere near some of the footage I've seen. But Johnny Platten, I think, was our best player, and I would do everything to protect him. Even when he played for South Australian State of Origin games, he'd run past and I'd just give him a little flick across the cheek just to let him know if I wanted to.
He could do it.
But I loved protecting him. We had a game against Melbourne. I'd been out for 5 weeks suspension, and during that time, the anomaly of the draw, then we played Melbourne 2 times in about 5 weeks, and there was a very good tagging player by the name of Dean Sharon, and it's got a sad end to this tale for Dean, but and I feel bad for that. But he would tag Johnny and terrorise him. And Johnny never, when I was playing with him, never got that sort of treatment. And then we played them again about 5 games later, my first game back. And Platts went in the centre, so Dean Sharon went in and started into him. The bounce went, I timed it, I came back from the centre square line, and the umpire walked in and he got to there, bounce, and I hit that square at top speed, which mathematically...
1,000 miles an hour.
It's 45 metre square, so it's 22.5 metres into the centre circle. He's standing on the back of it, so it's about 24, 25 metre sprint. The ball goes up, it's 3 seconds in the air. I got there before the ball, and poor Dean Sharon, and I half got him. I didn't quite get him, and he's like head over, doing this to Johnny. And the poor bugger, I cleaned him out, and the umpire paid a free kick against me. Gary Lyon came in and tried to remonstrate and push me to the ground. Free kick reversed. I got the kick. And poor old Dean Sharon never played another game. That was the end of his career. So, and I say that's the sad bit, but unfortunately that was the rules in this. But that's the want I had to protect my player.
And you mentioned that you had that persona, or you played that role, you protected, but also you're always happy, you're always upbeat. I had the great pleasure of meeting you in 2008 at Jack Newton Celebrity Golf Classic. Obviously, I grew up with Clint. I've known the Newton since I was 5. You know, you've obviously been involved and known Jack for a long, long time. Mate, we hit it off straight away, you know.
Straight away.
Jackie, Jack's lovely wife, and Clint's mum, she was terrified because she just said it's just like 2 different generations of exactly the same bloke.
You know, she said to me later on, she said, I was just setting the watch to see how long it would take for you two to gravitate towards each other.
Well, it didn't take long because, mate, the way you were... I walked into the bar, fancy that's where we met, and you controlled the room. And the Peter Pan, you're actually not like... I even say Pied Piper. No, you're actually better than the Pied Piper. You don't need a flute for people to follow it. I just remember... And I get over there, and I love... Australian sport. I know me AFL, you know. I love all sports, and I love me champions. So obviously there's you and Dipper there. So I'm fucking pumped to meet you boys. But you were just upbeat, mate. We'd get to bed at 6 in the morning. We'd turn off at 8, and we did it for 3 days in a row. But you were upbeat and always happy and never. But and like you said, you play the big brother a lot. But it's never life's never always, you know, giving you roses. You've had tough with your dad and your brother, but I never hear, like, mate, I can whinge about anything. If whinging was a sport in the Olympics, I'd be on the dice. But, mate, you've never been like that. Any time I see you, everything's, I'm going great, you're always happy. But life certainly hasn't given you roses every time.
But I've been blessed.
Yeah.
I've genuinely been blessed. You get some rough deals, and I feel sorry for my mum who's had to endure that, and she doesn't like me talking about it. The last time it was mentioned in the paper, she said, "Enough, Dermott. I've heard enough of it now." Yeah. So I was trying to steer clear for. Yeah. But for me, if my mum wasn't here, and thank God she is here, she's 89 in a few weeks' time. She's so healthy. She's going to outlast me. Well, she's that good. But it wouldn't bother me to talk about it. Some people can get some strength out of it and learn a little bit out of it. Yeah, my dialogue around the mental health space, I'm happy to help out in that way. It hurts. Yeah. It does hurt. But it hurts when you sit down and you're alone. I find that if I'm with people, I listened to your interview with Johnsy. Yeah. And I went to ring you straight after that to let you know. I love the fact that you played NRL, and I love the fact that you played State of Origin. But your net worth to me is more than that. Yeah. If you hadn't played sport at that level and you were standing in that bar, your personality, I still would have gravitated towards it. Yeah. I still play cricket. Yeah. 50 k's down the coast here with the bloke. The vice captain is the bloke I sat at. Remember the old desks where you lifted up the wooden lid? 1974, David Scabs Martin. I still play cricket with him. And 4 or 5 of the other blokes, Fish and Johnny and BJ, all these, I still play with them because I have that bond with them, that link with them. I travel 2 times a week to go and train. And once on the weekend to play cricket with them because I love what they give me emotionally, mentally, and that friendship.
And that's important as you...
Oh, yeah,
especially
absolutely.
When you were around 20 of your best mates every day for 15 years out of junior football career.
Yeah. Oh, it's so important that you put yourself in a position where you are with like-minded friends. Yeah. And you know what it's like. And I'm a bush expert at summing up characters. Yep. You know, in the course of, if I put myself in any, like last week, I will take an estimate, 100 people might come up and say, Dermott Brereton, how do you do, mate? How you going? Shake hands, whatever. Within 30 seconds, you can sum up if the character is there because they're a good character or whether they want to derive something out of it, which is fine. Yeah. but it's only going to be fleeting.
Yeah. Yep.
And you can sum up characters fairly quickly. And you see teammates bring blokes into the rooms after games during your career. 1 out of 20 you'll go, that's a damn good bloke.
Yeah.
I like him. And then later on you'll say, hey, how's your mate Slug going? How's your mate James going? Yeah. And if you hadn't played footy, you'd be the same. Yeah, your value as a bloke extends beyond your sporting prowess, and you can sum that up fairly quickly.
Well, next, mate, we've got questions from fans. We've got plenty who've wrote in, and brought to you from Swish, heyswish.com, to get in touch with your
great company, Swish. Heroes.
The first one, who was your hero growing up?
A bloke called Phil Carman.
Yeah.
He got suspended for 20 weeks headbutting an umpire. I said that to Alan Jeans once. He said, who was your hero as a child, son? I said, Phil Carman. And he went, that figures. One of the most talented footballers God ever put breath into. Yeah. A little bit of a flawed genius, and Phil even admits that. I've become friendly with Phil. Yep. My first game was the 82 preliminary, first semi, as we've touched on. It was Phil's last game on the opposition.
And so you got to play against your hero.
Well, he was at the other end. I didn't know whether to take out a knuckle duster or an autograph book. Yeah. So I've gone up to Phil at a dinner about 20 years later, and we're chatting away, and it was just a beautiful moment for me. Phil might remember it, he might not remember it. And I said, Phil, how are you going? He said, yeah, good, Dermott, how are you? And he's very gentleman, very charming, distinguished looking man. You wouldn't think he was a nutter on the field, but he's...
Well, usually they're the quiet ones, the
And I said, Phil, I have to admit this. You are my absolute childhood hero as a kid. And he went, thank you very much, Dermott. I must admit, from the day I retired and I kept watching AFL, you became my favourite player, and it meant like watching himself to me. Yeah. So Phil Carman,
mate, how do you think you would have gone in today's game?
There would be benefits for me, and there would be hurdles to jump. The game as it's played would be more difficult for me to be a leading player. It's a lot more choked up. I probably would play midfield a lot more now. But in our days, the two, if you're playing in front as a leading forward at centre half forward, the two methods for the backman to stop you marking the ball was one, chop the arm, or two, punch in the back of the head. Seldom did they hit the ball. Both are banned now, but that was the actually preferred method. So that would suit me. In general play, they leave space open, you can lead up. Once the ball's in the forward line, it chokes. And I wasn't a good below, even though not tall, as I said, 6'1.5", I wasn't terribly good below my knees. But I actually could have been a pretty powerful midfielder. So, and I had good running
really good engine.
Yeah.
Mate, as famous as you were during your career, and still are down here, how did you like your life in Sydney, considering it would have been like a fishbowl here in Melbourne when you were... But I'm pretty sure no one's like you would have enjoyed Sydney when you were there.
I love Sydney. Sydney's one of the best places in the world to live. I'd prefer to live there now than the amount of lockdowns we get down here at the moment. Well done, Gladys. You're doing real good.
She's excellent.
Yeah,
she's anyone.
Fantastic.
Come on up.
We'll leave the other bloke alone. Sydney was extraordinary. What a beautiful, beautiful place to live. I lived Neutral Bay. No water views, I might add. But people say, you lived in Neutral Bay. Yeah. No, I lived behind the shopping centre there.
Was the Oaks Hotel there?
Yes, walking distance.
Of course it would have been.
I saw.
I reckon they would have asked you, do you want a water view or do you want walking distance to the pub? You said, I'll take the pub.
So I went in there once. I was suspended a fair bit of that year. I went in there once and... Cliffy Lyons? Cliffy Lyons! Yes. What a ripping bloke. I went in there on a Friday night.
He would have been playing both of you would have been
playing on Sunday. No, I was out suspended. So, and my wife at that stage, she only spent about 4 days, a fortnight up there. She had work down here. So I'm always out. So I've gone in there, and it was back in the days, and Cliff, he said, yeah. He said, hey, you that Brereton bloke, how are you? Said, yeah, good, mate. Great to meet you. Chatted away for 2-3 minutes. How do you do? Can I get you a drink? Yeah, drink. He's there. He's like this.
Cigarette.
Drinking and smoking in the club, which was legal. And he's like that, and he's got that. And I said, so... And I looked at him and said, so what, are you out injured or suspended? He's gone, no, I'm playing Sunday.
Well, he's known to smoke at half time. Back in the day, they were, where's Cliffy? He's in the toilet smoking.
Having a smoke. Yeah. But he openly said, no, I'm playing Sunday.
Oh, mate, you look, these measures happen these days, just wouldn't.
Here's
another one here, mate. What was I'm a Celebrity like?
It was wonderful to meet the people.
Yeah.
It was very tough.
Yeah.
It was very tough.
Because you're not doing too much, or just...
No. Well, they do. For everyone who watches those shows, the basic premise of those shows is get everyone up real early, 5 a.m, kind of string it out. And most of the footage that they shoot about the argument scenes, they're late afternoon. People have been up. They're tired. They're emotional. It was very difficult coming from a sporting background, and then you have to a team environment, and you have your teams on I'm a Celebrity, and you've got to achieve. And then Mark Bouris turns around and says, "So who should I fire from your team?" I'm not telling you anyone. He said, no, you have to tell me someone. I said, I can't.
Yeah.
I just can't. And then he said, well, who should I fire? You have to tell me. This is the way this works. And it got to the stage when he asked me that, I said, me.
Yeah.
Fire me. And he didn't.
Yeah.
And then the next time, it was funny because little Jeffrey played it beautifully, Jeff Fennick.
Yeah.
There was a few of us left, and Jeff was captain, and we lost.
Yeah.
And he said, Jeff, who should I find? He said, the girl or the boy over there, and I'm sitting on Jeff's right. And then he said, Dermott, who should we fire? And if I had said one of those two, it's them.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't do it. I said, fire me. And he said, why would I do that? He said, it's got to be one of the two that's already been nominated or the team leader for this task. And I said to him, I said, I've had about enough now.
Yeah, I'm ready to go.
I think I won 190,000 for Warnie's charity, which is a legitimate charity too. He's got some plaque over that, but he was fantastic, the work Warnie's done. Yeah. And the reason I said was, well, Jeff was team leader and he did a few things wrong. But I really was sort of the team leader, if you know what I mean. So fire me. And then they didn't put that to air. Nah. And he said, I'm firing you because you were kind of like the team leader.
He fired me because I asked him to fire.
It was difficult.
Well, that was obvious. But how was it in the jungle? That's another. How hard was that in terms of...
Oh, my back. I've had my back. Oh, here you go. I'll show you. So that's where they went in.
Jesus.
Big scar
there.
Long? Yeah, they go into the centre and they put the cage in the... Yeah. Back to the mic. They put the cage in the middle of your spine. So that was pretty crook when I was in the jungle. So that I found it hardest on my back.
Yep.
Other than that, I can do boredom as well as the next person. Yeah. But it's lovely meeting all the personnel. There's a couple of people in there you probably might move on from in a few quick minutes. Yep. But it was an experience. Yeah.
Well, mate, this last question as this wind picks up. There's 1,000 here, all very similar questions. But the Essendon line in the sand fight, or the line in the sand game, which is 2004, which obviously you're not playing. But for those people at home, you were a director at Hawthorn for a long time.
So, on the board,
and I know Dunstall, from some of you great players, have obviously invested back into the game. Run us through the line in the sand game. There's and the history of it.
Okay, so Hawthorn and Essendon, we have a bitter rivalry.
Yeah.
Wonderful club, Essendon.
Well, totally again, it goes back to the finals you played against.
Yeah, they were brutal in the likes. But there was the period there where Essendon won the premiership in 2000.
They lost one or two games.
Yeah, they were the best team.
They probably should have won the year before against Carlton. Knocked them out in 99.
Yeah. Helicopter goes over. That'll be Eddie. He's on the way home.
He's going down to Portsea.
Yeah, pick up the craze. Yeah. So they'd knocked us around. We hadn't
3 years.
beaten them for 17 previous outings.
So that's about 8 years or something, 6 years.
Oh, yeah. But not only, but because Sheedy was still coaching them, that rivalry was still there.
Yeah.
He decided when we beat Hawthorn, we also put the boots in order. They'd physically...
Bashes.
They didn't even hit us with the brick. They troweled us and then put the brick on top of us. They were a tough, brilliant, nasty team. And we had an emerging team and a few plug-ins. It came just before half-time. We had this, and he ended up a premiership ruckman, Robbie Campbell, big puppy dog of a kid. And what happens in our sport, you're caught with the ball. If there's no prior opportunity, the umpire go, slow. No, you'll say, my ball, I'll bounce it down.
You didn't get enough time.
Yeah, not enough time, no prior opportunity. Give it to me. And everybody sort of tenses to, and then you give the ball back. Big puppy dog kid goes, my ball, and Robbie goes, slack. But the guy who I tried to recruit to Hawthorn as well after this is a fantastic player, tough, hard, nasty.
I wonder why you want to pick
Mark Johnson.
Yes.
He went through with the tackle when Robbie went limp. Just went slack, and he head slammed him.
Yeah. Did it knock him out?
Yeah, he just lay there. And I just went, that is, in this day and age, that's what we did.
Yeah.
That's a nasty act. We can't, I've had enough. Yeah. 17 games matches of this. So I went down at half time. We had a couple of hard lads.
And you went to Campbell Brown? Was that one bloke you went to? Which is no surprise, Brownie, if you're out there watching, because you are a lunatic. You're one of my favourites. But
I love Brownie.
You know who to fire up.
I didn't.
Well, he's a tough competitor himself.
Oh, yeah, he's an animal.
Yeah.
And so is another bloke, Richie Vanderberg. And I stood at the urinal, and the coaches were yelling, don't put up with this, and they really, don't put up with it, we're not copping this. And I was watching them fuming, and I went to the urinal, and just by chance,
those two blokes were there?
Brownie and Richie were either side of me before they go back out, and I looked at them, looked straight ahead, and I said, whatever you do, Mark Johnson cannot walk off this ground under his own speed.
Yeah.
And they went, yep, Chop's right. They got everyone. They got everyone except for Mark Johnson.
Well, at least no one. But it's a famous game in terms of a famous moment. At least they made the.
Well, the thing is,
scene, isn't it?
And people.
Did you win that game?
No, got trounced. But to understand the sport, and a lot of people say that was wicked. The rugby leaguers would say that's a grub moment. We had been bashed unmercifully for 17 games, and we got done by about 70 points. Next time we played them,
you won.
They won by 5.
So I kept coming.
We won the next game, and I think we won the next 12.
Yeah, unbelievable.
It changed
just the mentality, isn't it?
The mentality, the dialogue, the frame of mind. It changed where they were at.
Yeah.
They got a new coach a couple of years later in Clarkson, who was nasty.
And I'll ask a question of this. Do you think, too, they did what they did, and I believe they certainly did because of the person who told them to do it, in saying you?
I think they were well motivated.
You tell me to climb that palm tree, I'm climbing it just because you do. Mate, like I said, mate, you're as charismatic in terms of having fun, but mate, I think if I would want to be in a foxhole, I want to be in a foxhole with you because I know you've got me back.
There's bigger, tougher guys, but I'll have a go.
But yeah, exactly. So, but your reputation, and not only reputation because it's earned and because of what you've done there, maybe if it wasn't you, it doesn't happen.
The coaches were souping them up. Yeah. There's no doubt about that. They were feeling it. Yeah. But having a board member with my status
certainly
ratified the permission to do it. You mentioned climb that pole. I'll tell you one. We're winding up, yeah?
Yeah.
I'll tell you one. It never gets mentioned. And being the larrikin, so it's mid-80s, and we played an exhibition game in Japan. And for anyone who's...
AFL exhibition match, mid-80s.
Yeah. And we got a good crowd.
Yeah.
And we played at the Yokohama...
Is this before the season? No,
at the end of the season, 2 weeks after the season.
So you're in good spirits?
Oh, yeah. We played at the Yokohama Stadium. And if anyone's been to Tokyo, have you been to the Hard Rock Cafe? And it's a 2-story building, and there's a window, a 12-foot window up top, about 12 foot high, about 6 foot wide. And outside is an animatronic King Kong hanging on, feet up against the window like that, and he's looking in, and his head, moving, his eye winks. And we're in there, and I've looked at this King Kong. Don't get any ideas, anyone. I don't want to be responsible for motivating you to do something stupid and fall off. And I looked at him and said, he's really shitting me.
Keeps winking at you.
Keep wink. Couple more. Still doing it. I said, keep an eye on him.
Yeah.
So the boys have kept an eye on him. I've gone out.
Climbed it.
I've climbed a 90 mil down pipe, 40 foot up.
To get on this gorilla.
Second story, walked across the roof. How stupid is this? Toes on the edge.
And you wouldn't have thought twice about doing this.
No, it was on. Unzipped and just rained on him. Boys,
play on. No.
Play on.
Oh,
Play on. Came back down the 90 mil drain pipe, which was scarier going down than it was coming up. Yeah, put the shoes back on.
straight back to the bar.
Yeah.
Oh, mate, thank you for taking time out. And
My pleasure.
That's about the only true story, or the only stories we could tell to the viewers. Somewhat you got out, but mate, you've been a great mate of mine for a long time. But not only that, you're one of the great Australian sportsmen of all time, and I appreciate you taking time out here to share your story to everyone, mate.
Love you, Finch.
Thanks, Derm.
See you, mate.